Hello everyone, welcome back to another daily Marvel Snap video. So I promise we are going to continue pulling cards. We probably have enough credits that we could unlock the last 3 cards that we have to pull, but there's just so many new deck builds that I've wanted to try out and that I'm seeing that I'm having fun with, and I want to make sure that I'm showcasing those. But the video after this one is going to be a card pull, so we either have Wasp, which is going to feel a little difficult, we have Black Widow. She's going to be pretty easy to slot into a junk deck, or maybe a couple of other builds with her as well. And then we have the elusive Mystique in our last 3 cards. But focusing on today's video. So while I was playing and recording some of my other videos, I got stomped to the ground by a couple of Electro decks. Stomped to the ground. And so it made me really curious. Once I finished recording what I had in mind already, I started looking at building an Electro ramp deck. And so the key idea of this deck list is that you can use Electro on 3 to ramp into so that you have 5 energy on turn 4, 6 energy on turn 5, and you can drop 2 6-drop cards. And the idea is to make them very impactful. So this deck list has some pretty good on-reveal cards that are going to help push power into all of the lanes. We can have a pretty high power output consistently. And so we have combos like Sunspot into Electro, passing on turn 4, dropping Infinite on 5, hitting it with an Arnim Zola to disperse that power into the other lanes. We can do a Dr. Doom on 5. We can hit that with an Odin on 6. That's gonna put 10 power into 2 of the lanes, and we're gonna have a pretty decent power push in whatever lane we stack those 2 cards in. And then if we have locked one of those lanes down with Storm, it becomes really hard for them to win because we can push so much power into those lanes after they are already locked down. And so let me run through the whole deck list really quickly. So we have Sunspot. Sunspot is going to be an easy to drop 1-drop card. If we draw into Hell's Kitchen, it thins our deck. And if we end up passing to play Infinite naturally, then Sunspot is going to be able to absorb that energy that we're not spending so that he is a larger board presence. We have Daredevil. Daredevil is in here as a way to kind of control what they drop on turn 5, so we can react accordingly. If we have Ramp, we can do a Magneto to pull a Wong away. We can do a Dr. Doom to disperse power if it looks like we need to. We can drop Gamora. We have a lot of options. And Daredevil is going to kind of give us some insight into that so that we can play in an optimal location and in an optimal way. We have Electro. Electro is going to give us 1 additional energy, but his ongoing ability is that you can only play 1 card a turn moving forward. We have Storm. She's a great lane lockdown card, especially when we have cards that are going to be able to push power into that lane after the fact, so our Arnim Zola or our Dr. Doom. We have Wave. So Wave is a second way to cheat out a 6-cost card early. So if we don't draw into Electro, if we don't draw into Jubilee, we can drop Wave on 4. That'll allow us to drop a 6-cost card on 5, and then we can drop another natural 6-drop card on 6 to push as much power out onto the board as possible. We have Jubilee. Jubilee is going to have a lot of really good targets in this deck list. So let's say we play Jubilee in an empty lane. It does pull our Arnim Zola. That Jubilee is going to then duplicate across the board. It's going to pull a card each time, and each of those are going to have good targets as well. But every single card that Jubilee can hit is a valuable target. So if we hit a Storm, that is going to then lock down that lane. In the following turn, we can hit Wave, which is going to ramp us into our cards. We can hit Electro, or we can just hit one of our big, powerful units by itself, and then that becomes a free 6-drop card in and of itself. We have Gamora, so if we weren't able to ramp and we know what they're playing on turn 5, we can drop Gamora to get some upside. It's going to be a 10 power drop, which is pretty decent. We can always follow that up with an Odin to re-trigger that on reveal if we need to, depending on what the opponent plays. We have Arnim Zola as a way to maneuver and manipulate where our power levels are, and it duplicates it. So Arnim Zola is going to hit a target, ideally our Infinite or maybe even our Dr. Doom. That's going to destroy it in that lane unless there's a Wakanda or an armor on the enemy side, and it's going to summon copies in the other lanes. So if we hit an Infinite, that is going to be essentially a 20 power play by pushing that 1 Infinite into the other 2. And then there are some pretty cool uses with the Arnim Zola in this deck list. We have Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom is going to add 5 power Doom bots to each other location. So this is going to be our main power push. If we can hit this with an Odin, if we can hit this with an Arnim Zola, that is going to push quite a bit of power into all 3 of the lanes and allow us to remain competitive in those lanes. We have Odin. Odin is going to re-trigger any on-reveal ability for the cards in that lane, so we can hit some pretty good ones with like an Arnim Zola, a Gamora, a Jubilee, a Wave if they're running a Swarm-style deck, Magneto even. We have some really good targets for Odin in this list. we have Magneto. He has a really big high power stat stick, and he has the on reveal move all opposing 3 and 4 cost cards to this location. So we can clump together if they have a double Thor for some reason. We can clump those together if they're running Thor and double Dino. Again, for some reason, we can clump those together so that that power is not spread across the board. It then neutralizes the threat in the other 2 lanes. And then lastly, closing out the deck list, we have Infinite. So Infinite, if we pull him with Jubilee, fantastic, but we're also able to drop him naturally on turn 5 if we ramp with Electro, giving us a pretty big power push and some flexibility in what we play next. So that is the rundown of the deck list. We are going to jump into a couple of games, and then I'll see you there. So first up we have Sunshine, and we have Lemuria as the first location. We do have our ramp component in our hand in Electro, so we should have a pretty decent power push this game. And I did want to take this time to thank our newest channel member, Pilk Enjoyer. Thank you so much for signing up for the channel membership. I really do appreciate it. As a reminder, as a channel member, you get access to cool emojis for your comments or for our live streams. You get access to priority comment responses, and at tier 3 you get early access to most of my new uploads so that you can see them first. And so once again, thank you so much, Pilk, for joining us as a channel member. If it is something that you're interested in, for any of our viewers, there is a join button next to the subscribe button, or there is a link in our description. So the last location is Kamar Taj, which is pretty good for us. They do have an ongoing, so they probably have a Spectrum that they're going to play here. But Electro is going to be able to trigger twice, which is going to give us 2 additional energy. We can always drop something like Odin, which will then trigger it 2 more times so that we can absorb even more upside with our Sunspot. So even though we're only going to be able to play 1 card per turn, having the extra energy is still going to be beneficial to us. And so now on turn 4, we can already drop a 6 cost card. And so typically this would be pretty tough for us, right? So they have Goose. So 4, 5, and 6 cards can't be played. The Big House, 4, 5, and 6 cards can't be played there. I'm still feeling pretty confident. Even though most of our cards are 4, 5, and 6 cost cards, we're going to be able to do Dr. Doom. That's going to push power here and here. We're going to be able to do it again. So I'm going to go ahead and snap because I don't want to scare them off. But I think we have a pretty good chance at getting a big power push. And so then even if we get Dr. Doom, we play Odin, we can hit it with an Arnim Zola to potentially expand that lead as well. So they're running an ongoing style deck, so most of their cards are probably going to be stacked here, but that's okay. I don't think we necessarily need to with our double on reveal Dr. Doom just running an absolute muck. So we're going to be able to cap out both of these locations, which will reduce their Lizard by 3, but it boosts their Mojo by 6. So in this lane, it's not great, but it does give us 2 additional energy so that we're going to be buffing up our Sunspot even more each turn. So next turn, we'll have 10 energy. So then even if we drop a 6 cost card, we're still going to be pushing 4 energy to our Sunspot, which is phenomenal. And then we cap out the other 2 locations with our Doom bots here. Okay, and so there comes the retreat. Such a fun deck for Kamar Taj. Whenever you get Kamar Taj, absolutely phenomenal. All right, so next up we have Kennedy. I think Kennedy bot, but the first location is Subterranea. We don't have a card that we can play just yet, but we are going to be able to drop Daredevil on 2. We're going to be able to drop Electro on 3. That way we can see what they play on turn 5. We can ramp into, let's say, a Gamora on 4 and Odin on 5, or a Magneto. We can pull their cards around. We can pull them out of Muir Island if we need to. And then we also have the Jubilee if we want to pull in and cap out Muir Island. We just have we have several potential play lines. So we are going to go ahead and keep with the Electro ramp, which is a little scary because of Subterranea. We have 5 rocks shuffled into our deck list, so drawing into good cards can be a little bit scary. So they do storm the far right location. We do have a Gamora that we can play because we have the 1 additional energy, and then if we draw into our Dr. Doom, we can push a Doombot that way as well. That may be enough for us to keep the upside, continue to win that lane. And if they don't play a card there, because this got hit with Wakanda Nemesis, it is going to be over that 7. Ooh, they drop a lot of cards. And so they drop their Demon, they drop Nova, they drop Nightcrawler, which does buff up Angela, and then can move out as well. And then Muir Island is going to be buffing our cards each turn. So we draw into Arnim Zola here. So they're going to lock this location with Professor X. They have initiative, so they are going to turn first. I would have liked to drop Magneto here. Next turn, we would have followed it up with an Arnim Zola to push here and here. But since they turn first, Jubilee would not pull cards in. Arnim Zola is not going to give us what we need, so we're going to have to do Magneto. Magneto is the only way that we can win this location, and then we have to hope that we draw into our Dr. Doom is going to be like really the only way to win this one. And then Magneto is not going to pull any cards in because Professor X has already locked it down. And so maybe it would have been more beneficial to pull a card over. And so we can do something cheeky. No, we can't. We can't do anything cheeky. I think we lose this one. Had we done Magneto here, it would have pulled their Storm out. I think we lose this one, but we're going to go ahead and drop a Jubilee. Hope that it pulls into our Dr. Doom, our Infinite. Most likely it is going to pull into a rock. There are still 3 rocks in our deck list. And then if it pulls into Odin, that pulls another card, gives us another chance. If it pulls into Wave, that's not going to be enough to win, I don't think. And so they snapped, but they're taking forever. I think this, I mean, it may be a bot. It might not. Maybe they're just using a default profile. But while they are thinking about it, I did want to thank a couple of members who used the super chat feature during our last live stream. So Jade Dragon Vengeance and Alcabua both used the super chat, which is similar to the super thanks on a pre-recorded video, where you can donate a small amount and it highlights your message. So our Jubilee does pull into a rock. No way. I saw the rock come through. I had no doubt in my mind that we had lost. So them having, I'm guessing they had, that was the only other card in their hand. So they didn't have any other good cards to play. That was all that they could push. Wow. So had we dropped Sunspot, we would have actually won this lane. But as I was saying, thank you guys for using that feature. Any small amount that I get in does go back into reinvesting into the content production. So I'm able to do things like purchasing additional equipment, purchasing better editing software, things like that. So every little bit is appreciated. And so I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for doing that during our last live stream. All right, so next up we have Heavy. And Kiln is one of the locations, so after turn 4 we're not going to be able to play cards there. That's okay as long as we draw into our Dr. Doom. I feel like I say that continually, but with this deck list and having locations that are limited, that's so incredibly important and so incredibly valuable. So we do draw into our Dr. Doom here. So we're going to pass this turn. Most likely we will storm this right lane on turn 3, and it's Danger Room, so we're going to be able to limit that. We're going to be able to lock it down. Next turn, we can either do Wave or we can do Jubilee, which will pull into 2 cards, which I don't know that I necessarily like. Oh, so they do a Storm as well. Okay, so we know we're going to be able to send 2 Doom bots over into the lane. We can actually send 4, so we have Wave here. That can limit them to 1 card. Next turn, we can do Dr. Doom, and then we can follow that up on turn 6 with an Odin, which is then going to send 2 more Doombots and 2 more Doombots. Depending on what they drop here, we're going to go ahead and do Wave. If it's something that it looks like we're going to be able to come up over, then we'll go ahead and snap after this reveal. And so, okay, it's a Gamora. The card disappeared for a cool minute. A pretty cool, sleek-looking Gamora. It gives me Master Yi vibes from League of Legends. And so they do snap. They're feeling confident. One thing I didn't think about here is if they have a Professor X and they lock down this double on reveal location, that will be locked down after this turn. But I think our Doombot would send it out anyways, just because he's locked down. Ooh, so they have a Dr. Doom as well. Their deck list is so incredibly similar to ours. It is ridiculous, but we do know that we're gonna be able to have the upside here by pushing an additional 1. We can do that. Is there a better play line? I don't think so. So we're gonna get 5 power here and here, another 5 power here. If they're not able to push another card here, no matter what power level they come up with in Kamar Taj, we will win. But if they're able to push another card, maybe they have a shot. It just depends on what they drop. They drop a Magneto, which pulls over our Storm, which is okay. That gives us an additional headspace to put more Dr. Doom bots over, and it's going to trigger in the order that they're listed. So Wave and then Dr. Doom first. So Dr. Doom is actually only going to trigger once there. No, it does twice. Okay, so it still does twice, even though Storm changed the location, since it had queued up the double on reveal. Look at that Doombot army. My gosh, we end up winning all 3 lanes. We have we have 8 Doombots on the board. My gosh, such a beautiful list. Dr. Doom is so much more fun and so much more versatile than I initially thought when we pulled him. And so with that win, we're going to go ahead and jump into another one. Next up, we have Zero. We do have Sunspot in our starting hand, so we're going to go ahead and play him onto the board. That way he can start buffing up for any turns that we end up passing or any turns that we have extra resources. And so then we have Cloning Vats as our second location. We could use this for... Is this good for any of our cards? Gamora comes to mind because she would take in that buff. She would come back into our hand, but that's a little bit late. We could also do an early Dr. Doom and then redrop Dr. Doom. I think we do our wave here. They're going to be able to see what we play on turn 5, but I don't think we necessarily give them any great information in that play line. So I think I'm going to play our Dr. Doom this turn. Next turn will be Gamora, most likely, or we could do a wave again next turn. But this will protect us from a sneaky Professor X. They're going to have to invest more resources to be able to get the upside from Professor X. And so typically they would probably try to lock down the vault because our Sunspot can continue to grow and come up over their power level. So Dr. Doom is going to ensure that they can't do something cheeky like that. And so we send a Doombot over into Monster Metropolis. They send a couple of Doombots our way as well. So they don't have an additional Dr. Doom here. We have initiative, so if we did drop our Jubilee, it'll pull into an additional card. They know that we have another Dr. Doom here. I don't think we do Gamora. I don't think we necessarily need to do Wave. I think Jubilee is the play here. That way they can't lock this location down. If they lock this one down, then we're tied. And then we would have to win one of the other lanes by more than they win it. Then more than they win this one. So we're going to go ahead and lock the Jubilee in. That is going to send that information their way, and they can play accordingly. But with Jubilee, they don't know exactly what we're going to draw into. We could draw into a Magneto. We could draw into our Electro, our Daredevil. They don't know for sure. We could also draw into Storm, which would allow power to be dropped into the vault on that final turn as well. And so they drop a card here. We do pull into our Magneto, which doesn't have any targets. So we're up by 5 in this lane, so we don't necessarily need to push a Doombot over there. And then if they hit this with an Odin, that would send a Doombot here and here. So I think they were playing the long game here. They're able to drop their Odin here to re-trigger Doombot here and here. Odin would be 8 power. It would take our 3 power bonus away. If we do this and they drop an Odin and we get that read correct, that will take 3 away from them here because Gamora will be the highest power card. And so I think that's what we lock in. We're going to go ahead and allow ourselves to lose Cloning Vats. If we tie into the vault, I think we will win Monster Metropolis by more than they win. And so they drop 2 cards here. They drop Lady Sif and then Ghost Rider. Oh, so we didn't anticipate the Ghost Rider portion. So I wonder if we can still come up over that power level. Because Odin is going to re-trigger Dr. Doom, but we are still the highest power card. We win that lane by 5. They win by 6. So they win by 1 additional power point in the Cloning Vats because of the Lady Sif combo. Very, very, very close and very good game 0. Next up we have Gromo Zika. In our starting hand we have our Sunspot, our Daredevil, nothing too phenomenal. If we win, you guys, if you're not subscribed, you have to subscribe. I'm just kidding. If you want to subscribe, make sure that you are subscribed. But I am going to push for some kind of cool output here for this game. And so we're going to go ahead and do our Daredevil as well, alongside our Sunspot. That way we can see what they play on turn 5. They put their Sunspot in X Mansion, which is always a little bit risky. So after this turn, it is going to add a random card into that lane, so definitely a little bit risky. We have Storm. We don't have our ramp component. I really would have liked to have our ramp here on 3 that we could skip 4, drop Infinite. But I think instead we're going to Storm Avengers Compound here. We're going to let the random card come out. We're feeling the RNG. We feel good about the RNG. For whatever reason, we think we are going to get the upside out of X Mansion. And so we're just going to let it roll. We're going to let it play out and see what we end up getting. And so we get a leader, which copies their Psylocke, which gives us 5 energy. And it gives them a Human Torch, which is not great for them, great for us. They have a 1 cost card. We have a 6. Clogs up our board a little bit, but that plays into the advantage of Mojo World. And then after this turn, this flooded lane is going to be locked down. So we're going to play Gamora since we do have the additional energy. They have 5 energy as well, and so they may do a Professor X here. I don't think it would help them any, but it is an option. And then maybe they do a Hobgoblin and they send it over to our way in Mojo. No. So they use their 5 energy to just drop a Lockjaw. And so they're going to be cycling. They're going to be doing the cycle and hope. So they drop a card, which is going to end up being cycled. So it's a Jubilee. The only thing we have to play is Wave this turn. I think we drop Wave. Depending on what they draw into, next turn we either put our Magneto here. We could always do an Arnim Zola, which would trigger their leader. Maybe we do Wave here. No, they're already going to have this one capped out. So I don't see any reason that they're not able to cap out X Mansion. But that's going to be the hope. We're going to play Wave into Mojo World. That way that one's capped out. This location is capped out. If they only play 1 card next turn, so they have a really high power 6-drop card that they're planning on dropping. Ooh, and so it hits a Wolfsbane, which is pretty good. But if they only drop 1 card into X Mansion here, and so what do they flip into? They flip into their Mr. Negative. That is super late though. They could always have a White Tiger, which would push power here, but it's not going to be enough. If they only drop 1 card here, which actually no, because we dropped Wave, they can only drop 1 card here. We're going to be able to pull one of their cards over out of Mojo World. That is going to give us the advantage in the flooded lane. It's going to give us the advantage in Mojo World. If they have a White Tiger, it would trigger first. So it's not even like they could refill this spot. We're going to go ahead and snap. We hope that they stick around. We don't necessarily mind if we lose X Mansion, which we probably will, as long as we can pull one of their cards out. Unless they have Leader. Leader could do it for them. Leader would copy our Magneto. It would fill up the rest of their board. And then we couldn't pull a card over. Okay. And so they ended up retreating. We didn't get our 8-cube victory. We gave it a shot. But being able to pull one of their cards out, at least one of them, would have given us the 100-point advantage from Mojo World. So it didn't matter the power levels. And then since we locked down the flooded lane, we had a pretty solid advantage all around. Alright, so with that last game out of the way, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. Overall, the deck list feels pretty fun. There's a lot of paths to get to that winning condition. Your biggest power push is going to be your Doctor Doom, but you also have some pretty cheeky plays in being able to, if you draw into just the right draw, you can do the Infinite into the Arnim Zola to redistribute that 20 power. You could do some pretty big power pushes. And then if you run into a game where they extend it with magic, you then have another turn to push all of this additional power out onto the board. Overall, the deck list feels pretty fun. It feels like it could be competitive against most decks. I think it would still struggle against Hela or any of the really high power decks. But overall, I think it's a solid list and a solid use for Electro. But I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment. I appreciate each and every one of you guys so much for just joining in and viewing. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.